The night Uncle Samuel took my brother into the forest, I knew something was wrong. There was something off about how he whispered my brother's name, his voice slippery and cold, like he had a secret to share. My brother didn't notice. He only saw the sweets Uncle Samuel gave him and the way he laughed too loud at his own jokes. But I knew Uncle Samuel wasn't like the rest of us. He was my mother's brother, though he looked nothing like her. His skin was darker, his eyes narrow, and he always wore a yellow cloth around his neck, tied tightly, as if it was keeping something in. My mother warned us to be careful around him, to stay close whenever he visited. But that night he called my brother, and my brother went. It was long after midnight when I heard the rustling in the hallway, the soft pad of my brother's bare feet on the floor. I tiptoed to the door and peeked through the crack, my heart pounding as I saw Uncle Samuel leading him outside. I followed, my feet light on the ground, the night thick and dark. They headed towards the edge of the forest, where the old trees loomed tall and twisted. I watched as Uncle Samuel knelt down and whispered something into my brother's ear. My brother's shoulders slumped. His body seemed to shrink. He looked so small, standing there beside our uncle. Then Uncle Samuel's voice changed. It was soft, almost gentle, but there was something wrong with it. "You're a brave one," he said to my brother. "But there's something in you that's different. Let me show you." He led my brother deeper into the forest, where the trees grew thicker, shadows swallowing them whole. I could barely see them through the branches. But I saw enough to know Uncle Samuel was digging. The dirt was flying in every direction, faster than a person should be able to dig. I held my breath as he pulled something out of the hole. It was a cloth wrapped in red, stained and old. He handed it to my brother and said, "If you're brave, you'll open it." My brother, trembling, reached for the cloth. I wanted to scream, to run out and grab him, but my legs wouldn't move, and then he opened it. Inside there was a bone, small and brittle, like it had belonged to something young. "Keep it close to you," Uncle Samuel said, his eyes glittering in the darkness. "It will keep you safe. It belonged to your cousin, the one who didn't make it." My brother looked up, confusion on his face. We didn't have a cousin who didn't make it. Uncle Samuel's smile was strange, wide and twisted, his teeth catching the moonlight in a way that made me shiver. He patted my brother's head and turned to leave, glancing over his shoulder. "Don't tell anyone," he said, "or it won't protect you." My brother held onto that bone, clutching it close as we stumbled back to the house. He didn't say a word, and neither did I. But that night, he slept with his back to the wall, his hands wrapped tight around the bone. And every night after, he kept it close, even as it started to smell, even when it started to turn strange colors. Months passed, and my brother got quieter, thinner. His eyes seemed hollow, his skin pale. He barely spoke, barely ate. And Uncle Samuel? He kept coming back, his visits more frequent, his yellow cloth tighter around his neck. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I crept into my brother's room and took the bone from under his pillow. It was cold, slimy, as if it had been sitting in water for too long. I buried it in the backyard, deep under the ground, praying it would break whatever spell Uncle Samuel had cast. The next morning, my brother's fever broke. His color returned, his appetite came back. But he never spoke of that night in the forest again. And Uncle Samuel? We never saw him after that. But sometimes, when the nights are quiet, I still hear him whispering, calling my brother's name from the shadows, and I know one day he'll come back for him.